come to mind that pick up on some of the threads that I've talked about. One is the private meetings in advance, kind of unusual. So I was mediating a sexual harassment case involving a major nonprofit organization, involving the CEO of the organization and one of his senior administrators, who was not of the same race. And it was male-female as well. So there were racial issues, male-female, concealment issues, inappropriate behavior in the workplace. And so when the joint session was going to start, I'd had the private meetings days ahead. I always like to touch base with each side separately. I don't have them go right into the same room. I have them start that day in separate rooms, and I touch base quickly with them. So I walk into the woman's home base conference room with her lawyer, and she says to me, "Well, did he admit it?" Now, we all know I couldn't answer that question. She knew that, her lawyer certainly did, and was about to jump in when I said, "Well, you're aware I can't answer that question. But let me ask you, what do you think? Do you think he admitted it?" She suddenly was starting to think, I believe, for the first time about these as negotiations, because that's part of the coaching, is to help each side understand, first of all, these are negotiations and you need to have a strategic approach to them. She then began to analyze for me and for her lawyer the person on the other side. And she had a pretty accurate description of saying, "Oh no, he's not going to admit it." I say, "Well, is that the way he behaves in other settings?" "Oh yeah, I mean, you know, he'll do this, that, and this is just the way he is. He's not going to be direct, he'll be indirect." You know, I said, "Well, what does that teach you? What lessons do you take from that as you proceed today with these negotiations?" She said, "Oh, that's very interesting." Well, it went on, and it resolved at the end of that day. It was a long day, it was a highly charged day, and I just sensed that that interchange, which took me somewhat by surprise, but once I realized she asked it, it seemed totally natural. I think it affected her behavior for the whole day as she negotiated with somebody that she had described to me in a very accurate way. Another example I can give you has to do with the evaluative function and my doing that in a dialogue format privately with each side. I was mediating an employment dispute between the administration of a Fortune 50 company and a senior management person who had been dismissed in what is often an inappropriate manner, maybe for very good reasons, but the heat of the moment led the person to be informed that he, who was Hispanic, and the CEO was a white male, to be dismissed at Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock, escorted by his security people out of his office in front of his staff. And I had been in effect evaluating the case by asking the general counsel of the company and senior management, would there have been any other way to handle this? There had been things leading up to this, you know. did you do? And the CEO asked me, well, what do you think? And I started to say, well, you know, there could have been, and at that point, the general counsel, a woman, actually leaned forward and she said, we screwed up. And I felt that my asking the questions had led to the self-evaluation that then became the power on that side of the table, and the matter resolved a couple of hours after that.